What's up, guys? All right, so bear with me. I'm kind of winging it here, but I wanted to talk about some stuff. Pretty much my flavor of spiritual practice. Pretty much, it is sort of a blend of different forms of shamanism and mysticism, occultism, esotericism, both Western and Eastern. Um, and what I'm doing right now is relatively new because I'm constantly evolving. But I started my journey with spirituality in general, religion, when I was very young. When I was very very young, I was going to a Mormon church, but um, we weren't feeling it, so we ended up going to a Pentecostal church, and I did that for about like a decade, right? Um, I've also been to some Catholic churches, and I find the Catholic churches really interesting. But I've never actually been a part of a Catholic church. I just been there because other friends and family members were Catholic. Um, Now, when I was in church, there was many times where I would get upset because they would say things that are legitimately wrong. Like I remember I was probably 14, 15 in Sunday school, and my Sunday school teacher was trying to convince me that in Hinduism they believe that there's a god of the chairs. Like this is the chair, there's a god of chairs. And I had to correct him like that's not what they believe. And he said, "No, no, no. They believe that everything has a god. Like there's a god of the pencils, there's a god of the paperclip." And I'm like, that is literally not what they believe. And then he kept insisting. So I had to like stop him and say, no, you're wrong. That is not what they believe. A lot of people think of Hindus of being polytheistic, as in the belief of many gods. But in actuality, Hindus are predominantly pantheistic, which is the belief that everything is God. The difference is that when you see a long list of Hindu gods, all of these gods are just manifestations of other gods, which are manifestations of other gods or incarnations of other gods, and it all like amalgamates into pretty much Brahman, and Brahman is pretty much the ultimate reality. Non-dualist, everything is one within Brahman. But in the Bhagavad Gita, um, Krishna states that Brahman is in Krishna. So Krishna actually flips it around and says that he's the ultimate reality, not necessarily, or maybe that the ultimate reality is within him. But Krishna also, through his speech, through his dialogue, he sort of reveals that you are Krishna, like we and Krishna are one. And I had to explain that, and there was a lot of things like this that I would have to like sort of debate them on it even before I knew much, like before like early teens, and even before I was a teenager. Like I remember being very young, and they told me that God said that you have to forgive people 77 times 77. And I'm like, that's kind of silly. And he was like, no, but the Bible says it. So if someone does something, you have to forgive them over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, but if the person knows that that's what you're doing, wouldn't they just continue doing the thing? Because like if they already know that I'm going to forgive them, they're going to do the thing. I'm going to forgive them, then they're going to do the thing again, and I'm going to forgive them again, right? And then they kind of sighed like, he's right, but I can't say that, right? Kind of thing. I guess I'm extrapolating, like maybe I'm projecting or something, but that's how I felt. And I was like, look, how about this? If a person keeps doing something that I don't like and I don't want any part of it, I'll forgive them, but I'm not talking to them anymore because I can't allow them to just continue doing these things to me, right? And it was like, all right, that's fair. And there was a few times where things like these got a little out of hand. Like I had left the church for a while. I was really really focused in Eastern stuff at the time. I was doing Tai Chi and Qigong and Dita Jiao, which is like a herbal like external herbal remedies for hits and falls, like for martial arts and stuff. I was doing Wing Chun, so I was learning a lot from Taoism and Buddhism, um, and I really enjoyed that. I started. I didn't really get into Hinduism until later on. I was aware of it and I liked it, but I didn't have much resources at the time. Now, long story short, this amalgamated into a sense of desire for wisdom, desire for connection with with divinity, a desire for mystical experiences and magical abilities of some sort. Um, and I sort of this went evolving, evolving. I'm gonna just go straight to the end so that I'm not stuck on the past for too long. But what I have right now, what I'm left with right now, I sort of have the basic knowledge of non-dualism that you would find in certain branches of Hinduism, like certain branches of Hinduism that revolve around Krishna, and also Tantra and like specifically Kali Ma. Like I specific like one of the goddesses that I am very fond of is Kali Ma. Um, Kali. I don't know. I'm not sure if you guys know who that is, but yeah. And what I did was that I really liked the philosophical component of Hinduism, and I really love a lot of the teachings that we find within Tantra, the Tantras, because there's multiple, like the Kalima, Tibetan Buddhism, Zen, Taoism. These are all Tantras. I'm pretty sure even Jainism is a Tantra. There's many Tantras, so I've learned a lot about these things. But I felt that, like, aesthetically and culturally and psychologically, I'm more connected with the Western stuff. So I took a lot of these philosophical components and mystical traditions, mystical practices, and brought it with me back into the West, which I felt a lot more comfortable with, which was Kabbalah. Now, the thing was that I didn't want to become Jewish. I didn't want to do Kabbalah the way that Jews do it. So I kept looking around. This is prior to what I'm talking now, but I quickly found Hermetic Kabbalah. So, stuff like, Israel Regarde, Aleister Crowley, Golden Dawn, the OTO, the AA, Thelema. Like Hermetic Kabbalah was really where it was at for me. And I really, really fell in love with Solomonic magic. So, I have access to 72 demons, 72 angels, and I felt that it wasn't complete. So I started looking into my own Hispanic heritage, and I started taking influences from Spiritismo, which is pretty much Spanish for spiritism, which is pretty much saint magic. And a lot of these saints, some of them are legitimate saints that you would find in Catholicism, and some of these saints are actually deities from different pagan religions that were sanctified and turned into saints, some of which by the Catholic Church, because they analyzed what this person was like and they said, yes, this person is a saint, therefore they're a saint now. And other times it's more of a folk tradition where Hispanics, where it was pretty much the natives of the land, the Africans that came over along with the Spaniards, and these cultures sort of mixed in Latin America and the Caribbean. And what they did was they started practicing their African traditions um, by uh, sort of um, superimposing a saint over an African deity or a Loa or a Orisha, and pretty much it's like this is Shango, but I forgot which saint is Shango, but like this is Shango, but over here we're gonna call him Saint Benedict. I'm making that up, so I'm not saying that that's the actual thing that they did, but but it's saying like this is pretty much what they did, which is like Shango. I can't do anything with Shango here because they're Christian. They'll kill me. They'll force convert me. So I'm gonna call him Saint Benedict, and I'm gonna use a statue of Saint Benedict, and I'm gonna do everything the way that I would as if it's Catholicism, but it's actually Shango that I'm working with. So in Spiritismo, we're going to see some of that African influence. We're going to see some native influence, like natives to Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua. So a lot of like Aztecan, Mayan influences sometimes. Um, you're going to see a lot, but mostly African influences. But all of these like native, the Tainos in Caribbean, but most of these influences were pretty much the baseline, and then the aesthetic was Catholicism, saints and stuff. Now, I don't pay too much attention to whether it's a Catholic saint or a another entity or whatever. I'm fine with whichever it is. I prefer not to work with the African deities, not out of like discontent with it or any moral qualms. It's simply that a lot of these traditions are closed, like Lakumi, what's it called? Ifa, Palomayombe, Kimbamba. Like a lot of these things are closed traditions. Voodoo, Voodoo. These are closed traditions. You're supposed to be invited in. You're supposed to be initiated. There's a process that you have to go through in order to be familiarized with these deities and then to be able to work with them. This is not something you could just buy an ebook and start doing. I'm assuming that people have done that, but it's not how it's supposed to be. These traditions are communal. I don't know if I'm correct, but I'm pretty sure that all of the ADR, so African diaspora religions, are cannot be done solo. They're not solitary practices. Like these are communal practices, and I personally I like the communal idea, but I've never really been into it really big. I like the solo, lone wolf kind of thing. But long story short, now I have access to um, 74 saints and the folk magic that comes along with that. So usually it's a lot of candle magic, maybe the usage of some plants and herbs and roots, and sort of it's kind of like saints plus hoodoo in a sense. You have your special stuff like Chinese, like yellow Chinese wash for like blessing, like floor wash, like to bless your home, different recipes for different things. So this is where you're gonna get these like hoodoo type things like gopher dust and hot foot powder and like different oils, like Venus oil, Von oil. This is where you're getting all of these folk stuff coming in. Um, so now, so I have these. I have access to 72 angels, 72 demons, 42 saints. Ooh, I apologize. Oh man. Right. And then my folk saint, my patron saints, the saints that I hold in the highest regard is Santa Muerte, um, which kind of experienced the same type of thing where most people believe that this stems this okay, so Santa Muerte is not a representation but death itself. Like she is death. And then they believe that this stems from the Aztecan religion where I believe her name was Mesomiquado. I can't pronounce that word. It's a very long name, and it's in a language that I don't fully understand how to pronounce. So sorry about that. But there, she was the goddess of the underworld, and there was a male component, like a male version of her. So there's two of them, and there's these stories about her and so on. But this entity appears in many different cultures. So you're going to see a saint of death or an angel of death in in like other areas of Southern America, South America, North America. You're going to see these types of things happening in Judaism. Like Judaism has a saint of death, but I mean an angel of death, but I don't know the name of their particular version of it. But this is something that appears in multiple places because death is very, very entangled with our humanity because we're all um, connected by our mortality. No matter who you are and where you're from, whether you're poor, rich, tall, short, fat, skinny, white, black, this, that, whatever, doesn't matter which trait or characteristic you want to say that you believe makes you different. At the end of the day, every single thing that's alive dies at some point, and that's something that connects us. And this sort of transcends a lot of these cultural and religious and regional tribal barriers. It's something that we can all understand everywhere. So Santa Marta is my patron saint. She that like I don't. There's no other really better way to describe that. Um, and I do work magic with her, and her magic is very uh, like folk magic orientated. It has the feeling, it has the feel of hoodoo behind it, but it's a little more like brujeria. Like it feels a little. It's unique, but it has like a Mexican flavor to it, right? Um, there are things that I've seen in these practices that are different from hoodoo and the different forms of witchcraft and you know magic that you'll see in folk traditions. Um, long story short, Santa Muerte, Kalima, 74 saints, 72 angels, 72 demons. Um, and then there's various miscellaneous spirits here and there that I engage with. So, for instance, it gets a little bit more deeper. So there is certain uh, like genies or geniuses. There's like genius spirits, not necessarily genies like DJ like jinn or like demons, but like these, you know, it's just like these other sorts of spirits that are around. And I concentrate mostly on ceremonial magic, and that's kind of where what I do with that. So I have some of these spirits that I work with in order to do certain protection spell rituals, cleansings, you know, those types of things, um, or like specific workings, like to get money and so on. I try to concentrate mostly on ceremonial magic because I believe it speaks to me a little bit more. But the folk magic does also hold its weight. It works. There's a guy on YouTube called Balthazar, and I was watching him a couple of years ago, and I ended up buying some of his PDFs, and that introduced me to a awesome blend of hoodoo and Solomonic magic, which allowed me to make mojo bags, um, planetary mojo bags that were like the ritual itself is using angel magic and planetary magic, and then certain physical things to create a mojo bag for specific outcomes. And and then you have like a Saturnian um, witch's bottle and a Venus honey jar for like a love spell. Um, and he has some pretty good stuff. Some a lot of like pretty much Solomonic magic and Kabbalistic magic, but it's mixed with that folk energy. So you get a ritual. You have a ceremonial ritual that is that carries that vibe of a candle spell, like candle magic, and it feels so amazing doing it. And if you do it properly, it can be very, very potent. I remember a few years ago, I hit a rough patch and I had zero money, literally zero money. I had no help from anybody. Everything was going to crap. I was surviving literally on dollars per week, like literally dollars. Um, and I decided to save up for like about a week or two. Like I forgot what happened, but something happened, and I got my hands on a good amount of money, and I knew that I had enough money to work this spell. And I did a Jupiter Mojo bag for money, and I did everything perfect, exactly how I was supposed to. And within a week, I found a job. Within a month, somebody offered me a better job, and then I lost the job because of COVID. And because I was working for 3 months before COVID, I qualified um, for the what's it called, the stimulus check. So I went from a job to a better job to losing my job, got stimulus check, and then I think like a month or two passed, and then one day I went to check my bank account, and I just had $8,000 in my bank account, and then I started getting literally like I think I don't remember what it was like. I think it was about like it was a good amount of money weekly for an entire year, and then they cut it in half, but they kept giving me money for another year on top of that, right? And I was in really really bad shape, and somehow I was able to get a job, land a better job, keep that job for about 3 months, long enough to lose the job to get be able to qualify for stimulus, and then I was pretty much taken care of for about 2 years. And then since I had that money, I used it to try to put myself in a better position, and I bought myself an electric bike. Um, and after everything was said and done, like, well, and not in the beginning, but after everything was said and done, like the time was up. I wasn't getting any money anymore. I had saved some of this money. I bought an electric bike. I started working for Uber Eats, and now, like, pretty much I have a basic job. Like, it's not great. I'm not definitely not rolling in cash, but I'm surviving. I'm doing okay. And I don't think that any of that would have happened without that Jupiter ritual. So that's kind of like a little testimony, right? Um, like and I know that there's like skeptical people that would try to say, it's a coincidence, but going from jobless for like 6 months because of different issues I don't want to get into, and then you do this thing, and literally within a week you're working, and then a month after that you get a better job, and then 3 months after that you end up just getting money without working, and then as soon as that finishes you end up getting a job that's even better than the first two jobs, and then a year after that they change the rules on that job, and now you're making double the money for the same amount of hours of work, right? And this just kept progressing, right? Like once I started working, it took about a year, but rules changed, and now I work the same amount of hours but make double the money that I was making in the beginning. And I feel that this is just one of my big experiences. Now it is years into the future, like after that ritual, so I feel comfortable talking about it. But when you have an experience that crazy, it's hard to not believe that there's something to this stuff, right? And ever since then, I've been doing my rituals here and there, for whatever. Mostly, I am focusing on my internal. So I try to do things where I will learn faster, retain information faster, read faster, get stronger faster, so on and so on. Because I believe that I don't want to be one of these magicians or whatever you want to call it, where their whole life is doing magic, but then, like, what are you doing magic for, right? Like what are the things within the physical world that you're trying to accomplish that goes beyond the magic? Like, the magic is to make you get all of those things, right? So for the last couple of years, since everything has been going a lot better, there's some problems here and there, but compared to where I was in 2018 and 19, I am doing definitely better than then, right? Um, but what was it that I was going to say? Um, so I took an interest in trying to develop an intellectual side to myself. I started studying a lot of different humanities and sciences, and pretty much anything that I'm able to learn on my own. Whenever something is too difficult for me to learn on my own, I'll brush up on it just to keep, like, up to date. But I don't concentrate too much because I feel I would need to actually go to school to learn that subject. It's just too complicated for me to learn on my own. So I've spent a lot of time on philosophy, psychology, sociology, history, theology, and I think I have a pretty decent understanding of physics and chemistry. But nothing too profound, right? Like, if we had a conversation of physics and chemistry, I would be able to follow. I would be able to talk about, different concepts and ideas and my own, like, theories that I have, um, on the origins of the universe and consciousness and so on, like that. And I try to stick to, when I talk about these things, I try to be as scientific as possible, but I am influenced by my spirituality. So, but I don't allow my spirituality to, you know, like, completely warp my scientific understanding of something. You know, like I try to keep it as scientific as possible, right? Um, if the thing, if I can't demonstrate the thing to be 100% true, it at least needs to logically follow. If this, then that. And if that, then that, right? Like, if this is true, then this, and this thing is true, then this must also be true. Like, it has to logically follow, right? So I think I could talk about these things later on. And I also started spending a lot of time on physical training. So I started doing powerlifting and yoga. I'm not that great at the yoga. Like, I always get lazy and I don't want to stretch, but I really need to start doing that because I'm getting very strong and very muscular. And if you're really strong and muscular, but you're not flexible, then you become very rigid, and that sucks. Um, but yeah, but like, I used magic to help me. I was able to. I remember I started working out. My deadlift was at about 320 pounds. That was my one rep maximum, and I did some magic. I did some things. I started training very specifically for what I wanted, and I was able to get that deadlift from 320 pounds to 450 pounds in 6 months, right? And I was able to get my bench press from 140 pounds to 270 pounds in 6 months. So I think that the magic is helping because there's all sorts of freaks out there that make these giant leaps out of nowhere. But I'm not like the most athletic person, so adding 100 and something pounds to the bar in 6 months, I think that's pretty impressive. Maybe I'm just not aware. Maybe that's normal, and I'm just not aware. But I think it was impressive, right? So I'm trying to do more yoga, stay flexible, do some mobility training, and pretty much all of this is just a conditioning for my martial arts. So for martial arts, when I was young and I was doing the Eastern stuff, I was doing a lot of Wing Chun and Tai Chi and those types of things. Bagua, Gung Fu, stuff like that. And I just felt that there was missing something. So I picked up Muay Thai and fell in love with it. And I just started mixing these things together. And a couple of years ago, I think about 6, 7 years ago, I got really interested into BJJ, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, because I felt I just didn't have any grappling game. So I did a little class in BJJ, got really interested in it, loved it. BJJ got me really interested in judo and Roman Greco wrestling. I tried to find a place for Roman Greco wrestling. No, I tried to find a place for judo, and it just so happened that they also taught wrestling and sambo. So I started doing all of these things. So now I have a pretty good striking game. Some good, okay. I'm not the best, but I'm okay at wrestling and grappling, like stands up grappling and grappling on the floor. And about 6 months ago, I picked up Kali so that I could start doing some weapons training. So, knives, daggers, swords, sticks, bow staffs, spears, pretty much anything that you can attack with, right? Like blunt objects, sharp objects, whatever. Um, and I thought that that wasn't enough, so I started doing a little bit of archery, like darts, slingshots, pretty much anything that I'm allowed to have. The only thing that I haven't really been doing, that I haven't done at all, is firearms training. But that's because I just can't do firearms in my city. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe if things change in the future and I can go to another state specifically to do that, then awesome. But right now, I'm not doing that. So my magic and my spirituality is really based off of these things, right? So all of my magic and all of my spiritual stuff is based off of making me better at these things. So making me stronger, making me faster, more mobile, fight better, be able to handle any type of weapon or anything that I need to be mobile, like horse riding, offensive driving, that type of stuff. Um, I try to be very active in my intellectual pursuits. And I try not to be one of these people where you read like 20 books on Stoicism and now you're a Stoic. Like, what I want to do is read 20 books on Stoicism and then read the books that inspired that book and then read the books that inspired that book and then follow it to its roots and then develop my own thing and take what I think is beneficial from it and leave what is not beneficial, right? So then I started reading a lot of existentialism, what's it called, absurdism, nihilism, and I don't specifically pick one. I believe that these views are beneficial in different contexts. So sometimes I will view things a little more nihilistically, and sometimes I will view things a little more existentially. And most of the time, I'm very just like absurdist, just laugh at the whole situation type thing, like it's all about the lols type attitude. I'm very I'm very much a utilitarian. I think that ultimately everything that I do and want and have should have some sort of utility. It should be benefiting me or others in some sort of way. So, I try to do that. There's many things that there's a lot of little concepts that I've created in the field of philosophy and psychology. Like I speak about this in a book that I'm currently writing called The Straight Line from Experience to Action, which pretty much shows you how an experience develops into feelings and thoughts. Those feelings and thoughts develop into beliefs. Those beliefs lead you to commit actions. Those actions lead you to new experiences that either challenge or reinforce the prior belief. And then that leads you down a road of either um, changing the belief or adapting the belief or believing the belief even harder, so on and so on. It's not that simple. It takes a couple of paragraphs to truly understand the whole thing, but I wanted just to stick it in there so that you could see what type of thinking I'm doing when it comes to these topics. But yeah, but this is kind of my flavor of spirituality. Everything needs to have a utility. I'm not doing spirituality just for the sake of being spiritual. Um, Beyond all of my magic and spirituality is pretty much based on me getting better physically, intellectually, and then when it comes to like the high magic, like the great works, the internal stuff, it's more about mystical experiences. So out of body experiences, lucid dreaming, clairvoyant moments. Like a profound awareness of self and other, and like being able to read people very well. I think these things work very well for me, and it also helps me a lot when I'm doing divination for myself and others, so that I can figure out what's going on with them and what they need in their life. And yeah, so so that's pretty much everything. So if you found any of the things I was talking about interesting, you can ask me questions about anything specific. Just drop. I don't care how many questions you have. If you have like two or three questions, just leave them. And if they're something that I can make a full video to, I'll do that. Or I might just make a list and do another video explaining everything, or like all of the questions. Um, I personally, if you're gonna ask me what are my favorite type of questions, it would come down to philosophical questions. And my philosophical take is pretty esoteric and mystical, and it has a theological component to it, but not to the sense where it's like, my way is the truth and that's final type of thing. But just so that you know, my philosophical takes are influenced by these things. But yeah. All right, guys. That's enough of that. Yeah. So I if I at least entertained you, right, hit that like button, freaking subscribe and leave some questions so that we can start getting deeper into this stuff. Like I'm just starting off with this, so I kind of want to figure out how to make a more like better quality video, um, so that I can try to hit some like legitimate points and some stuff that you guys like would benefit from knowing. So I think that I have a lot of information from the beginning of my mystical understanding of the world when I was about 17 till today. So, we're talking about literally like 17 years, I think, something like that, um, of studying and training. So, I would love to share what I've learned with you guys. So, just leave some comments and I'll be sure to answer. All right, guys, peace out.